All right. You there, Jamie?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for that. I was giving a try for the scene changes in OBS, which is the new podcasting software I've been transitioning from Riverside. So we'll see how that works.
Sounds good. Technology.
Oh, God, it is not. Oh, anyhow, I'm not even going to go down that road. Jamie, thank you so much for cutting some time out to get on this podcast, which is, let's see, it's CROM update number 88 for the CROM Anthology number 2. And Jamie and I have collaborated finally. So I figured since the pages are done, we're not going to spoil too much. I got these little printouts of all the pages you had already lettered here just to show. And I have the originals. You have the pencils. But we have a lot more to even catch up on since the last time you and I got together. But just real quickly, so everybody knows who you are, Jamie, give me a little background on you, and it'll help everybody know.
Sure thing. Jamie Barrows. I do indie comics, underground comics. Got back into it, and it was around 2022, really, when I finally started making comics again after 20 years of not really making many. I mean, I was always drawing. I just didn't really take the panel serialized storytelling to task, I guess, until cartoonist kayfabe was a big part of that, as it was for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Worked my way in, worked with some people. My favorite comics are Savage Sword of Conan comics, and I just got to the point where I really wanted to do an homage, so I started doing Brutal Blade of Crom comics. Somebody said, I realized that there was this other Crom guy out there, the Crom guru, and it was all good vibes, and since we both have our separate projects, but also sort of crossing over. You've contributed to my stuff. I've contributed to yours. Now we've got the collab going. So yeah, that's the Cliff's Notes.
And it's still, I think it's just so fucking cool that at the same time I'm releasing my first book, which is the CROM Collective, the 2024 Collective, which was just putting everything that I had done up to this point and some revising or amplifying in this gray value scaling and stuff. I get this text from somebody that was literally like, somebody else is doing a CROM anthology. And I stood up in my studio and I was like, yes, because my initial attention, and is still my center of focus, is building a community. And because it is just so damn hard getting any kind of intention out there on your own, posting, no matter how many times you do to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, doesn't matter. But when you can get this, kind of like anthology thing up and moving, and, you're meeting people, and then everybody can kind of blast out the word, when books are released, it's just so amazing. And having the two camps between what I refer to you guys as the Brutal Blade of Crom crew, and the CROM Anthology. I just don't see any limits.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I kind of realized what you were doing was a little different, and I was really doing these, a little thinner magazine comic. I was like, okay, I think there's room for everybody. This is number one, by the way. I was holding this up earlier. This is the one that was coming out. This was that first one, which I see you have there too. You have all the same stuff. I mean, I was on your website looking for information on CROM before I ever knew who you were or we connected. You know what I mean? It was just the main source of info to find. It just seemed like the perfect character and a really fun project. And I had people willing to contribute to it and really give me work that I was felt a little about, let me spit it out here, felt a little guilty taking, because it was just such high quality stuff.
Yeah, I think we're going to get into that a little bit more later, because it is amazing the output in the indie world, and having such similar identifiers in that, and trust. That's the word I'm looking for. The trust factor, where somebody's like, hey, I got a call for entry, and do you want to submit for my indie CROM anthology? And first thing I would think is like, well, who the heck are you? Are you going to get this damn thing out? So on and so forth. And then there's the flip of it is like, well, are you going to steal it? Are you going to do this? It can be very anxious driven, but I think what outweighs it is the seeing your stuff in print. I think that's always, it's just such the mechanical pinpointing of why somebody makes a comic book. I know for me, I constantly say that my art is this. It's this book, this comic book. I have physical art that I make, and I share the process with in making it, and that's super fun. But until it's printed, it's not done. And then, of course, until somebody else has seen it or bought it, it's still not done. So it's just so wild. But having heard also that, you were using at that time when you were going through, making your CROM, putting together your CROM anthology and utilizing CROMthebarbarian.com. I had very little resources up there. It was basically the original stories from Fox and Gwenta, my stuff, trying to link to other people. But that was pretty much it. Now it's a full-blown store. These titles are all available on CROM the Barbarian, as well as I have a link down below to Jamie's Comix Mix'em print on demand, which is another way, which is just a even better way too to get a hold of or find, I should say, something that you would probably come across in a YouTube video or an Instagram post and be like, oh shit, I got to get a copy of that. Where do I get that? Type of thing.
Yeah. I think I found your website. I think the website at the time was a little more than just sort of a single scroll of information. Actually, I was kind of relieved when I sort of found the character of CROM, the human barbarian Gardner Fox character of CROM.
Yeah.
Public domain, free use,
yeah,
but has the recognizable name. That seemed like a good combo. And actually, it was kind of like a relief a little bit that there wasn't that much old material.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worried about lore and what's canonical and what's not. It's like, hey, he's got a sword. Sometimes it's called Skullbiter, and sometimes it's called Skullcracker, and sometimes it's called Skullcrusher. And he's got blonde hair, and that's about all you got to worry about. You can just go where you want to go from there.
It's so true. I felt exactly the same way. CROM actually, in my research back in 2013, was looking for, quote, end quote, in a Google search, public domain barbarian comic book character.
Yeah.
And this pops up. I don't even know who Gardner Fox is at this time. And I'm thinking, well, isn't this nice? You can't really ask for anything better than a comic book character named CROM the Barbarian. And then when I did start digging down into it, Fox had done a lot of sword and sorcery. As a matter of fact, yesterday I was reading his Shadow of a Demon from his novel of the Far Travels. He wrote in 1976. He started writing sword and sorcery in 68, 69 with Kothar. And so I was like, holy shit, this is like a gold mine in not only being able to sort of back yourself into a popular search term, which would be Conan/CROM, but also just the sword and sorcery material in the pulp world. So it's just been so fun, and I just don't even see any steam running out. So I'll probably mention this a couple of times. I know for myself, I can only speak for myself, is that constantly looking for people to contribute and collaborate with. So go over to cromthebarbarian.com. Of course, Jamie runs his own ship. And as a project manager, he's actually like a beacon of hopefulness when I get into some like anxious times, because for me, I started at the beginning of the year getting ready for CROM Anthology #2. And what happened was I got over 25 submissions. and I have to say, it was probably close to 30 submissions, but I have to say 25 people showed up within 2 months. And I really did start panicking because I still had to get my shit done. I'm getting there, but at the same time, I remember I was out on a walk. I was just walking my daily routine, and like I said, I was a bit anxious about. I was like, "Geez, I mean, this could take me 2 years, and this book's gonna be 400 pages." And I'm thinking, like, well, I got to get everybody in on the, And then it was like a cool breeze came through, and it was literally like, well, why don't you just do what Jamie Barrows does? And I was like, huh? What do you mean? Just break it up into a bunch of issues. Oh my God, that is what Jamie does. So I was like, duh, but at the same time, following in your footsteps. So CROM Anthology is a 270-page mock-up at this point. Like I said, pretty much 25 comics and a couple of prose that will be illustrated will be coming forward, split in CROM Anthology 2 and 3. And #2 looks like we're going to see the release being in August. So very, very, very excited about that. So this goes right into the question of like, how are you managing your comic book making and project leading? Because I know you got a family, you've got a full-time job, and just the other things extracurricular that you keep your sanity with.
Sure. Usually like a project will sort of pop up. This year it's been a little weird. I've kind of maybe overextended myself a little bit because I decided to do the Blood Maidens series this year, which are the books up top here. Yep. Which you were nice enough to contribute a cover and a long masterpiece story to this issue, which is the second one. Right. And so I did the same thing I usually do. I reached out to some people that I knew like doing this kind of stuff and have contributed to CROM, and some additional people as well. And then when I started seeing people respond with, "Oh, I've got this idea and it's this many pages. I've got this idea and it'll probably be this many pages." And most everybody that I'm working with has sort of proven themselves in the past to be able to finish a project and contribute to it. So I'm not too worried about things, never coming in or sort of, dissolving in the ether. But then I started looking at the number of pages and I'm like, okay, I can definitely split this up. Oh, I can split it again. Blood Maidens ended up being a triple release. Yep. Another thing too, because you're doing these very thick tomes, I'm doing sort of magazine comics. And once I get enough pages, it's sort of like, I don't want to go to, 40, 50 pages, and I'm kind of good right there. It allows my price points to be pretty solid. Yep. And with Blood Maidens, I was even a little bit, I scaled it down even a little bit more into slightly shorter, but, these are all around 30, 20 to 30 pages, really. None of them are as short as 20, but they're all around 32 pages, I think. So I kept them a little shorter, kept them more floppy. And then in terms of my drawing, by the time I'm putting together like a group of people to work on one of these anthologies, my contribution to it has probably been done for months. I'm moving into doing more CROMs this year, of course, and people are starting to do some work on those. My comics that will be appearing in those issues of Brutal Blade of CROM have been done for since the winter. Wow. Yeah, I'm usually way ahead because right now, my main sort of like public work will be on putting together. I'm doing a Cyberzerker anthology with some people, and then I'm going to move on to issues of CROM. But what I'm drawing is an issue of Sentinel Sam that probably won't get printed till toward the end of the year. So I tend to be staggered in that way.
Right. Yeah. I had a feeling, and the clarity of hearing you say it instead of me making it up in my head. I thought to myself, Jamie's logic has to be he's getting these stories, his stuff done first, then he does the call for entry, then he puts the book together, puts it in release for, so on and so forth. So my goal is at this point, and I've got a very good momentum for getting CROM 3, probably beginning of 2027 out. But when I'm done with 2 and 3, I'm going to go back into hiatus mode and just work on my stuff. But I also, in a bit of frustration, and maybe trying to satisfy this frustration, is I want to be collaborating more, because this story here, which is called Barbarians of the Pit, and from me Instagram messaging you and say, hey, do you want to collaborate, on a CROM story? Sure. What do you need? Why don't you write or pencil 8 pages ish, turns into 11. It's okay. I get the pages, right? So I have them, in here, I got the pages penciled. I get them. And my mind literally just exploded with, I don't want to say finally, but I don't have any other vocabulary, but I literally, Jamie, was like, finally, I'm going to be able to do something that I've always wanted to do, which is me on top of somebody else's work without annihilating them. And I've always felt that way about your work, is that I remember when getting your Skullbiter, or Skullcracker, excuse me. I remember seeing your Skullcracker, this page particular, and we talked about this. By the way, there's other interviews with Jamie here on CROM the Barbarian YouTube, and I believe 2. Yes. And this is literally, we're just starting a momentum here. But I remember asking you in an interview hesitantly, like, oh, could I do my own variant version of Skullcracker? And you're like, yeah, sure. I was like, wow, that was kind of easy. But when it got down to having you do the pencils, and like I said, the writing as well, I have this I love this process of working in indie comics, because we all have these other lives. So it's not like you're getting up at 8:30 and having a run and a coffee and a bagel, and you sit at the desk and you check your emails. It's literally, you have to very impulsively engage what's going on out there. And especially if, someone's giving you an opportunity to collaborate or get published, you take it on. But when I got your notes in the beginning, I could have said things like, I could have kept asking questions, but I felt like, you know what? I'm going to give Jamie as much of me as possible, and then let him deal with it. In that I have a really good feeling that whatever he receives, he's going to be able to translate into or conform it back to the original idea. And just so you get kind of an idea here, where's the one? Yeah, here it is. This is what I wanted to show, was this. So I want you to talk about this video game kind of like sure. Setup. And when I got the pages, well, you get blown away by getting the pencil pages, and you have the story, and you got 11, and then I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do, right? And sure. I got this loose, but then you come back with this, and I'm like, this is impossible. He must have had a camera set up in my studio the whole goddamn time. But look at that. Look at Slayer versus Konar. Look at that. Go ahead. I'm too excited. Go ahead. You tell us.
when I was deciding like what project I wanted to do, this Barbarians of the Pit thing, part of it was there are these other like public domain barbarians, first of all, that come up on the list when you look for a character to work with. Much like you, there's a Google search history somewhere that says like public domain barbarian characters, and CROM pops up. But also, you get Konar the Macedonian, who is this guy right here, and you get Grigner, who's back here, and you get CROM, and that's basically it. So then I asked some friends, or some people I know online, is like, hey, Bam, can I borrow Crania sitting back here? Hey, Jake Quirk, can I borrow Slayer right here? I've got a barbarian character I've been working with named Theodora. There's kind of a nameless guy right here who's nameless for a reason. When you read the comic, you'll realize why.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I don't know, like, in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, I want Kurt to have absolute executive power to do what he wants with these pencils. And I kept telling you that. I'm like, hey, I know these pencils are pretty tight, but don't think you have to, I was probably a little bit almost annoying about it. Because for me, I know you said that you had a lot of room to interpret, but for me, this is really tight penciling. I go so, usually when I'm grabbing the inks and I'm jumping into my own work, it's so much looser than that. I don't get anywhere near this tight.
Right.
So I wanted you just to know that, like, even though it looks tight, I'm not expecting anything other than, some wild Kurt Brugelisms in the inking process. And you definitely went above and beyond. But also, because I wanted to just embrace as crazy as that could get, I also wanted to step away from sort of some of the tropes of sword and sorcery. Like, this story definitely has tropes. It has the evil wizard, and it has the dragon, and it has all the things. But also, yes, that the video game and wrestling, like I was looking up, like wrestling moves so I could pick the right ones. That's a Steiner screwdriver, or there's a couple different versions of this kind of a DDT driver move. Crom's doing a choke slam here. Later on, in the story, there's some tag team moves where Theodora and Crania are doing a heart attack on an ogre. CROM and Slayer are doing a 3D from the Dudley Boys on another ogre. Kona's doing the Randy Savage top rope elbow drop. So I just really wanted to sort of like try to integrate sword and sorcery tropes with things that are very much not sword and sorcery tropes. And I had a feeling that you were going to go wild and crazy with your inks and finishes. So I just wanted to embrace stuff that was outside the normal sword and sorcery box.
Perfect storm. Perfect storm. It's I know for me, I take things too seriously, and it's kind of like just like the way I was brought up and the way I've kind of navigated through the world and everything. But even my criticism of entertainment, comic books, let's say specifically, are people taking it too seriously. Like I show when I was finished the pages, my wife gets home from work, and I don't even give her like 30 seconds to get in the house and put groceries down. So you guys see these pages. You guys see these pages. Oh, just please, just give me 5 fucking minutes, okay? I'm like, okay. So later, literally, I lay the pages out in front of her, and she's like, oh, wow. And she's like, what's the story again? I said, it's called Barbarians of the Pit. It's like they're fighting. They're in a arena. This guy here is a wizard, and he's brought all these to fight the one to the. It's been done and everything. I said, but this is a wrestling ring. Wait. And so I just go from like page to page trying to explain what is ultimately going to come out, and I show her this page, and she goes, oh my gosh, that is wrestling. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, then she said, well, what does that have to do with Barbarians? And I was like, everything in the world. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, I was like, look, I mean, just like, tell me you don't understand this. She's like, no, I get it. I go, oh, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, dragon with a sword. And I was like, exactly. You just have fun, right? Like, let's have fun. Then take it back to showing her the page is lettered. And she reads it and she's like, oh my gosh, I really get it. And I go, that's the magic of comic books and the making of comic books. It's not making an animation. It's not writing a story and having an editor, so on and so forth. It is literally like, it's just flying, like jumping off cliffs and just flying.
Anybody, and especially this story, and like I said, it was kind of, I couldn't tell you exactly what triggered me to take this approach with the references to the wrestling stuff. Yeah. But the story reads just like a wrestling feud. You know, you have like the authoritarian figure making the wrestlers do what he wants, and then there's a run-in. You know, there's a guy comes. He wasn't a part of the show, but here he comes. His music hits. He's going to disrupt the whole thing. It's totally a lot of it's totally borrowed from the tropes of old school wrestling feuds. And I don't mean the type of thing you see now where storylines go on for weeks and weeks and months. I mean, this is the type of thing from the 80s where everybody does their little interview and then they wrestle and everything's got to be resolved before the end of the show.
Yep. and I grew up on that. I was lucky enough that my friends and I had fathers that were supportive of like anything we were doing, like soccer or fishing or whatever it was. I'll never forget a bunch of our dads got together and said, Saturday we're going to go see this show. And we're all like 13 years old or something. And there was a place up in Philly called the Spectrum, which is it's a pretty iconic place. So we're getting there and we see the big sign for the Spectrum. And one of my buddies says, oh no way. Are we going to see a wrestling match? And like the whole car we did it for like, probably till I was about 16 years old or something. It was like 2 or 3 wrestling matches. And I watched them on TV and stuff. And my thing though, for wrestling is it's like a completely, there's no sense that's involved. There's no rationale per se, right? It's exactly like you said. Back in the 80s, you'd have these two guys, we're going to kick you down. You're going to go, like, and they would like that. And then this whole thing that was completely choreographed, played out live in front of you like a stage show, all the way to the point of getting thrown out of the ring and landing on chairs next to you. I mean, Randy Savage is him and Roddy Piper, the shows that the matches that we got to see, those were the two that I had gotten close proximity to. They had gone down, they had taken my buddy's chair and like whacked the other one and stuff. And you're just like, it's just like being inside a martial arts movie, it's just, it's just a grand thing. And I have to say, this is exactly why and how I want to collaborate with others, because it can be a very solitary art form, comics, but I believe the success in stories is when there's at least 2 individuals driving the mechanism. But I think also having your book in anthologies. So in other words, if you're doing, let's say you're just contributing to Brutal Blade of Crom anthologies, right? You're being paired next to other, like, look at this. You know what I mean? Like being paired with Matchy, or Jake Quirk. I mean, like it has this like collaborative feeling, I guess is what I'm saying. So this is a question is like, why aren't you just sitting down and doing your own like graphic novels?
Well, I have this character Sentinel Sam, which is kind of the character that I do in a very solo way. Like that was the most recent issue, and I'm working on one right now. It's very different than Barbarian stuff. It's almost polar opposite of Barbarian stuff. This is all about trying to find, you know, your meaning and purpose in the celestial endless. But and so it's not very Barbarian-y. But I guess it stems from, for me, the way that I got back into all of this was just contributing little bits to other people's projects, because it had been so long since I had made a comic. You know, I made a couple, I've told this story before. I made comics when I was really little, just lined paper and fold them over. And then like as a teen, I made a couple that were sort of like a full length comic. And then I didn't really make a comic for probably 20 years and got back into it. And like I said, it was Cartoonist Kayfabe. They were doing a mailbag episode. I think they were flipping through a little comic that Paul Courtjohn put out, Xander Chrome.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a collage, and the conceit of it was that it was like a journal that was found later. And I was like, oh, I had this epiphany that, you know, comics can just be what you want them to be. They don't have to be the exact thing that you're used to seeing, which is why I became jaded about making them at one point, because I couldn't make them as perfect as what I was, you know, the comics that I was buying. But I realized you could do other things. And so he put out a thing like, hey, I'm making this middle-aged Ninja Turtles joke comic. And I was like, I could do a couple pages just to get myself back into it. So I just did 1 or 2 pages, and then it was 3 or 4 or 5 pages. But it was always working with other people. So I guess I still gravitate back to that idea of, you know, putting together these group projects. Although I am sort of branching out more and more. Like I said, the Sentinel Sam, the Cyberzerker character, you know, I'm doing an anthology with this character, but the main book is just my thing. So I try to find the balance between all of it.
Yeah, I think one of the crushing feelings as an entry point to comics is and we all do it. I don't care who you are or who you think you are, but we all do it in our heads, is we go, oh, I want to make a comic book. And then 5 to 10 minutes later you go, but I can't write or draw or ink an entire graphic novel. So now it's become insurmountable in your like head that it won't happen. But the anthology is, I think, a lot more easier and approachable. But like I said, even going back to being with other people at a similar trajectory, it just makes sense. Like what I produce, and when it goes out and it's in like an anthology form, I feel like makes sense. Like it's calibrated to, you know, and that's why I do the where is, oh, here it is. No. Damn it. Too much crap. Too small a room. But when I did CROM Anthology 1, like I started off with, you know, this is when I was just starting to really get crazy with my inking technique and like and going from there. But that was another one I did. But then I had my photo comic, the illustrations. Where is, oh, this collaboration with Jason Schoonover for CROM Bahar, which, you know, we're hoping at some point to do the reverse of this story. I started getting this real deeper feeling for, you know, being in an anthology situation. Where's the other? Oh yeah, like Dexter Jones, his God CROM. Next part's gonna be great. But I added this. Oh yeah, here he is, Rogan of the North, and this was done in 1985 by David D. Lanciani, and I found these old PDFs on archives.org and then tracked him down to his YouTube page. He's making music, and he was like, yeah, take them, do whatever you want. But the reason I want, and I had to redraw each of these pages. So each of these pages are redrawn by me with what the exact, he used the fine tip Sharpie and then just a regular Sharpie. So that was it. And I just wanted to go through it. But the idea was, and people have asked me like, why print something like this? The reason I printed this is for a couple reasons, but the number one reason was the ease of entry. because cinematographically, the story is very, very well. You look at it like this is very cinematographically told as a story, not tight, not rendered, to any point like this, but it's one of those things where, hey, if you flip through CROM Anthology and you come across something, you're like, well, I could do something similar to that. That's
Sure.
what I want. That's what I want you to react to. And I think that's like the bigger part of, keeping indie comics thriving, but also engaged in the way of like having others create.
And I try to think in those terms too. So, a lot of times I'll have sort of a deadline for submissions when I'm putting together one of my books. And, but a lot of times we'll get close to it and I'll be like, okay, at least the last few times be like, I've got a lot of material here. I can probably split this up. So I might do an extended deadline. If anybody's tight, if anybody needs a couple extra days, you have this extension. And then a lot of times I'll look at the material I have and I let how I break it up into the books kind of emerge, because you want to have that kind of balance that you're talking about. There's nobody who there's nobody who does tighter art than Jake Quirk.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Like,
oh, I do.
He's just, every line is exactly where he wants it to be, and that's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of fun to match that against, something by Joe Leonardo.
Yep. I was just going to Joe.
Yep. Who's doing this sort of like, 90s, hatch marks, little details type. You were looking at the same thing.
Yep.
So it's fun to match those up. But then again, just to, belabor the point, you have Alan Robinson, who's doing this.
I love Alan stuff. Yep.
He's doing some real old school underground stuff there.
Yep.
And then to continue the theme here, I got to this issue, the third CROM issue.
Yeah.
And this really opened my eyes to sort of being more flexible, like we talked about with the collab comic, because this issue had a piece by Mr. Meow.
Yeah.
And it's nearly experimental. It's not a true comic. It's an illustrated story.
Yep.
And so that was like an approach that was interesting. I got a comic in here from Melanie Strangemoon, who just does amazing, ink and paint work that's way outside of what you normally see in comics. And I've got a piece in this one by Steven Rexseidler. This is going to be a pretty obscure comment, but there's a fantasy movie called Lady Hawk.
Oh yeah.
And with Rucker Howard and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And okay, good. You know it. So the love, it's a tragic love story, because he turns into a wolf by night and she turns into a hawk by day, and they can never be humans together.
Yep.
So Steven Rexseidler did a story like that, except for instead of a hawk and a wolf, the guy turns into a monster truck and the lady turns into a machine gun. And it takes place in sword and sorcery time.
Come on.
I'm like, okay, you do not have to be slavish to the rules.
No,
and you sent a comic for the Second Blood Maidens, which is something that you had done a while back.
Yep.
Which is called Wench, which is, again, like not a traditional comic at all. It's an illustrated art. It's an illustrated prose piece, really more of a poem than anything else.
Yep.
And so that was another good sort of eye opener. So when it came time for me to do this Barbarians of the Pit thing, I was like, okay, I'm going to let go of some of the rules. It's going to be a wrestling comic. You did your crazy inks and finishes. So I came back and lettered it. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to do perfect text boxes and perfect speech bubbles. Like, we're going to mix this up a little bit. And so all of that was illuminating to me. It was all a great learning process. And it just helps me see like the wide range of things that you can accept when you're not limited by the corporate interest, I guess.
Well said. Very well said. And for all of the sort of maybe non-structure that indie has at the moment, it's still probably one of the best ways to get into being creative. Story, illustration, paneling, there's just this endless space that you can enter when it comes to comics that not only can you find sort of your own voice in it eventually, but you can navigate through other people's voices, which is, going back to, our source material, which is, it's Savage Sword of Crom, Conan. It's like, I can't even get, like, I don't know how many times I probably copied just this drawing alone by, F. Babber. I mean, I don't know if this person ever did any other comics, but this was the world. This was the world I wanted to live in. And I felt pretty confident to be able to take on something like this. But then you would get something, where, this is a Neil Adams in the Tribe, so that it's just like, whoa, here, this is where I've got to really scale up to, and it's very inspiring. But the work itself is just constantly over and over again, for me, a return to the source. It's just, I can never, ever get tired of these comics. I mean, it's just, for me, there's just nothing that compares and beats them. And especially being black and white and magazine format. So,
yeah, there is something about that I've definitely sort of become pretty committed to, is that larger format for the Barbarian stuff and the black and white interiors. My Cyberzerker is a different thing. This is more of a Saturday morning cartoon, Yeah. But for the Barbarian stuff, for sure, I totally agree with that. But I didn't, I find myself going back and forth a lot, because I also love experimenting with the smaller formats too. Yep. So I found different pathways to do so. Yep. But I totally agree with you with the traditional Barbarian stuff. I find myself inspired by the things you're talking about, but also, my generation is the Saturday morning cartoon generation of the 80s.
Yep.
And that's also a big part of it. And again, that's where it's kind of like evolved from these into the Cyberzerker thing. But then I'm always going to go back to this. Like, it's just, and then final point, which, sorry if I'm jumping around on you, Kurt. Can you say something else about, you said something else about the anthologies being a great entry point for people who want to experiment with comics. And I tell people when I reach out, I'm like, listen, you can do a comic. That's awesome. If you want to do a 1-page strip, that's cool. If you want to do a pinup, an illustration, if you want to do a prose piece, a poetry, an essay about your favorite Barbarian movies, like, I try to keep all of those pathways open too, to just give, just make it accessible for people who want to try different things.
That really goes well with my next question, which is why so goddamn small? But because for me, the frustration is just because everything is like, it's too small, right? Like,
sure.
I want to see Theodora this big and everything. But I also, and I want you to speak to this point, is, you do quite a few shows up in your area. And what another great way to get somebody started in something, where I think you have this is for like $3.
Yeah.
At least on these are a couple bucks a piece. I mean, if I'm saying right now, if you do not have a copy, and we're going to actually, the next segment is going to be talking about Cyberzerker. This is the perfect way to enter comic books. Zine, right?
Totally. Yeah. And that's a big reason I do that. The Theodora, zine size comic that you have there, that story is in the Blood Maidens in the bigger size. But, I like having a wide price point, so I can price, the one you're flipping through now, I can price that at $2 or $3.
Yep.
So it's great. Somebody goes to my Mixum and maybe, it's like $10. I don't know what I'm getting, but they can get Cyberzerker or the Theodora one shot, which is just like a little 12-page thing. Cyberzerker's full length, 20 pages, but you can get those for $3, see what's up. And then if you're into it, you can scale up to the big books.
Yep.
And it's the same thing at a con table. It's like, here's these awesome, eye-catching, large comics, and the people who like this kind of stuff, this is the kind of stuff those people like. But some of the other books give me different entry points to different things, so I like to have the range of sizes. And also I have this other theory about, like, I mean, this has been said for decades now, the comic is dying. I think the only thing that's struggling is really the traditional floppy, which is what my Sentinel Sam is, traditional size floppy.
Right.
I think that there's a lot of market for more boutique style stuff, which would be magazine style stuff, but also I think the current pipeline for comic readers takes kids from sort of kid comics like Dogman or whatever, and then the pipeline shoots them toward manga. And so a lot of it kind of skips over traditional comics, things like that, you know, we might like from our generation. Maybe that's just generational, but also I think that there's something to be said for being aware of the scale and dimensions and formats that different generations are used to being. That's a comic. A comic is this size because they're used to a manga. So I try to also provide things that sort of more resemble that also.
I believe it's very, very good thinking. I actually picked this up when I bought my my little bundle to be able to have copies on cromthebarbarian.com for the third in the series of Blood Maidens. I saw this for $3 and did exactly that. I mean, I didn't even care if it was in here or not, right? Because it's the stories here. Obviously, it's a larger print that I can read without straining my eyes, my old man eyes. But it was still this idea like, wow, you know, it's just kind of like easier also to have nearby. I like having comics around me. Like it's another thing that drives my wife crazy when she does dare to enter my man cave studio. You know, how can you do anything when all these piles and you know, everything's around you? You know, I said it totally reflects the inside of my mind. But there are things that, you know, this, and I'll pick it up and I'll be like, oh, this person, you know, inks, you know, with this pen, or this person adds color with these brushes. This person writes in this style. You know, it's just all these things that you get to immediately bounce around to, as well as my short yet growing stack of manga. You know, and it's just the way it is. I said, yeah, I would love to have a better organization thing going on, but at the same time I really don't care. You know, it's just I just got to get these things done. I'm dying to talk about Cyberzerker because I have not spoken to you since this has been released, and once again it was another add-on for me picking up Pipe Blood Maiden or Brutal Blade of Crom books. How did you get such an impact in something so small? And what's the reception been, Jamie?
Cyberzerker's gotten pretty good reactions. I don't want to say I was surprised by it, but it's definitely been a thing that's kind of taken, like I said, people sort of like really wanted to play with the character, and I'm not very precious about sort of my ownership of the character. I won't do too much editorial. If somebody wants to play with it, I might have a couple limitations, but not too much. But anyway, people just were interested in it. So this is the first solo issue that I put out at the beginning of this year, the end of last year, beginning of this year. Yeah. This had run in a serialized format in Alex Turbin's Random Access. Right. Toward the end of last year. We didn't run it right to the end. We kind of said, hey, see the rest of the story in the release. So I did this release, and he did a custom variant. Yep. With a different cover, which I don't have in reach right now, but so he has a full size version of this on the Random Access Comics side of things. So I thought like that was also cool because that delineates the two. But so like I put out this version of it, and then people were interested. So I'm going to do a couple of anthology issues this year, just of different people sort of wanting to play with the character, and then I will do another full length issue in the main line, which is what this will be, and I'll be doing another issue this year. This is definitely mostly inspired. It's got the sword and sorcery thing for sure. That's obvious. I mean, the cover is a after Frazetta. Yeah. If people want to like sort of look up Frazetta images, you'll see something like this. And colored by Jake Quirk. The cover, by the way, Jake Quirk, just a stand-up guy. Interiors are all marker, very bright, very cartoony. Really, I mean, it's kind of like it's a violent sci-fi barbarian comic, but it's colored in a very bright cartoony way, because I think this book is the biggest representative of my other big influence, which is cartoons from my childhood. So especially you'd think He-Man, but actually I wasn't so much into He-Man. I was more about Thundar and Thundercats.
Yep.
And that's really, I think, where Cyberzerker comes from most strongly. This sort of sci-fi sword and sorcery thing that pops up in those kind of characters, and also as probably the final influence on this, even though it's more under the surface. Edgar Rice Burroughs, Barsoom books, John Carter of Mars, and that sort of thing.
It was so pleasant to open it up and go through it about 4 or 5 times in the initial reading it, getting a hold of it. And I guess like 2 years now being in contact with you, obviously watching Instagram and picking up books that you're in and everything. This has such a personal stride to it. Like I did not have any of the reaction. Like I wasn't reacting to those cartoons specifically, probably most definitely subconsciously, because they are also completely locked within me. But the way you have vocalized the character and the story is solid, and this I can see over time being collected in a trade and also being sought out, because I really do believe one of the things I'm frustrated with, in development, but myself, excuse me, but when times get like heavy on one, I think the magic comes into like, well, just do what you want to do.
Yeah. Yep. And this is, I didn't really think that Cyberzerker would evolve into what it did. I was just going to do a couple shorts. I was just going to do a couple shorts for Alex's random. I wanted to contribute to it because I hadn't in a while, and I was like, I'm going to do a Robo Barbarian thing. I'll figure it out. I'll send a couple pages, and then it just went. It just grew. It just. I don't know how to. Just one of those things. It emerged on its own.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of like it definitely captured me. So yeah, I'll definitely be continuing this. And like I said, right now, like I said earlier, the work that I'm currently drawing is not always what you're seeing a lot in terms of what I'm announcing, because I'll be talking a lot about CROM, but I'll be working on Sentinel Sam. But once I'm done working on that, I'm going to switch to Cyberzerker, and I'll be doing another full-length issue of Cyberzerker. Hopefully that's out by the end of the year. We'll see how the timing goes.
Yeah, that's all we can.
Yeah, definitely cartoons. I definitely kind of see this as almost like, hey, this never existed, but it's in my head canon. It's as if there was a Saturday morning cartoon called like, Robo Warrior or something. And then 30 years later, somebody decided to do like an Adult Swim or like, the gritty reboot. And that's what I imagine Cyberzerker is. This is the gritty reboot of a Saturday morning cartoon that never was.
It's perfect. It really is. And the interpretation of your nostalgia and the things that have constantly inspired us. I still have 2 big boxes full of Conan magazines and even Conan the Barbarian magazines. And on my darkest days, where when one feels the world completely suppressing you and on your shoulders, burying you, I go to those boxes and I just sit there, and after about 2 hours, I'm on top of the world again. And it's just that's just the magic, for me, that's the magic of the character Conan, and especially before he becomes let's say superhero material, where he does have this sort of like very justified morality, where before when Robert E. Howard handled him, he was maybe a bimoral adventurer, and those adventures just had constant impact on the reader. It just kept keeps hitting you in the gut. No way, no way. Oh my God, oh my God. You know, like that's just. I'm constantly looking to emulate, you know, and even navigate the bimorality, you know, the ambiguous morality of characters, because I just don't believe in the justice of a superhero and savior in like a character form. I just have zero interest for me to make anything like that, but be even me to get like if you really sit down and watch Thundar the Barbarian, if he all you have to do is watch an episode and imagine Ariel not being there, and that whole episode goes sideways. The moment she's like, Thundar, can you just cut that shit out for a second? Like, get refocused. We've got to blah, blah, blah. And, you know, okay, Ariel, all right. But, you know, damn. And then, you know, and he reads it. But if he did it, him and Ukla would be, I mean, just pulverizing, you know, and it would
everything and everyone.
You know, but
Thundar is great. I love Thundar. It's fun to look at. The design, the characters, the concept.
Oh, yeah.
It's not. It might not be the most eloquently written show of all time,
right?
But yeah, Ariel totally serves. I mean, she definitely serves in that character or in that show. She is so much of the explanation of what's going on, and also sort of like she's almost his Jiminy Cricket. You know, she's his conscience. I will say too, I'm always talking about Conan. I think the parts of the character of Conan that sometimes get lost, not from people who are really big fans, but for casuals and him, whatever, is that you read a Conan story, he'll run away from things. Like he will run from fights. He is a human who can be hurt and injured and killed, for starters. And then the other part of it is he's a guy who speaks languages across his world. You know, he's a very intellectual character. He is very intelligent. He just believes in this barbarian lifestyle that he grew up in. So that's just kind of how he operates. But I think there's little details sometimes of how he moves through the world that get overlooked. And I'm not saying that I've done a good job of incorporating that kind of stuff into my CROM stories. It's something that I'd be interested in exploring a little bit more. But I still do think it's sometimes forgotten in the world of sword and sorcery that there can be some thoughtfulness and some humanity to the, you know, the muscle-bound hero.
Cosmic horror is my number one research topic. When I have downtime, I read C.L. Moore's Gyro Jory, her female like sword and sorcery. I think it's 6 stories. Probably for like the 3rd time, and for some reason, not completely unbeknownst to me, but I've been looking for the true magic of how to spin a classic sword and sorcery yarn, and going back and reading stuff, you know, like Lord Dunsany, Clark Ashton Smith, you know, Fritz Leiber, Robbie Howard, so on and so forth. I was like, oh, Gyro Jory. Oh, yeah. Let's read this one again. And I got through the first one, and I realized the true magic that Conan is fighting against is the cosmic horror. It is the Nietzschean existentialism of our finite existence. If I could get that heavy for just a half a moment. But, you know, Oliver Stone did that to me, you know, having watched it at like, you know, 12 years old, the movie, and the opener is, you know, that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger, you know, Nietzsche, and not getting a fucking clue what the hell he was speaking about. Then getting to college or even high school, I did theology studies. And then on my birthday, since I have owned a VHS or a DVD copy of Conan the Barbarian, I've watched, you know, Conan the Barbarian, the movie. And every time it's new and different, right? Because I've grown and changed. And that's the sign of a perfect piece of fiction, art form and stuff. But the cosmic horror element, I think, is really the secret. Like that, I do not have a good comprehension for, because I'm not a big horror fan, but I am a big existentialist. So it's kind of like, that's the thing I've been going there. So if anybody out there is looking for a really good classic yarn in sword and sorcery, C.L. Moore's Jirel, Jirel of Jory, Gory. They're great. They're great. You could find them on like archive.org or Amazon and everything. But it is amazing though what they got away with in the 80s for cartoons, even in the 70s. I was watching with a friend of mine. He always has to have like something running in the background television when we're hanging out. And we were watching Johnny Quest, and I'm like, holy crap, you could never run this on TV. You could never run this on public television. Like, there's no way. I mean, it's completely politically incorrect. But I grew up on that. Johnny Quest, Space Ghost. I mean, like, it was just ridiculous how we were afforded, I believe, a true ability to allow yourself to experience an imaginary place without it being concretely harmful, let's say. You know what I mean? Like if your parents brought you up right and they put both your feet, down on solid soil and you're navigating this stuff, you're not going to go out and do anything nefarious. It's just not true. But there is something, for me at least, rejuvenating when somebody can put me in a story that takes me away from the physicality of this world and allows me to just escape. The escape.
100%. That's totally for me. I never want to disparage anybody who wants to tell sort of like deep explorations of the human condition, and those things can be good. And I engage. I'll watch. I'll read it. But also part of it is to, my day job is kind of like involved in the tangle of the human challenge. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. So me personally, I don't need to leave my day job and then engage with the darkness of the human condition more. So,
gotcha.
So when I am home, when I'm making comics, I am drawing barbarians and I'm drawing robots and I'm drawing dinosaurs and monsters and the Sentinel Sam stuff is the closest that really I do to sort of like exploring the human condition, but it's more about that existentialism you talked about, which is a big part of how I see the world too. I guess it would be in danger of going toward nihilism, except I also sort of embrace the absurdism branch of it. So I don't know, I stay good natured about it, but the character is trying to figure that out in the Sentinel Sam books. So, and that was really Sentinel Sam. I've probably told this story before. This character was meant to be a simple vehicle for me to draw whatever I felt like drawing. He's a wanderer who traverses the cosmos, just going from place to place. And so originally my idea was that, like, hey, if I feel like drawing dinosaurs, Sam here lands on a dinosaur planet. If I feel like drawing goo monsters, Sam lands on a goo monster planet. But when I started making this comic, it turned into something else. It turned into this other exploration of, like I said, meaning and purpose and why am I here and so on and so forth. So I have to kind of finish that, and then I'll get back to the idea that if I want to draw goo monsters, Sam is my guy. But first I got to finish this exploration of meaning and purpose. But for the most part, I don't really need to engage with that stuff in my creative output because that's kind of my day-to-day.
Right. Yeah, that's why I find it to be more absurd when people bring in, I always feel funny bringing these things up because, I do get concerned about the comments being used as a platform for others. But I really can't, God's honest truth, I really can't speak to anything in the way of names or whys or groups or anything to that stuff. But this individual that is trying to boycott John Byrne's new X-Men book, this is how I always come across material. This is my reaction initially when I always first see something like this on YouTube. I literally, every time I'm like, this is gonna be a really funny joke. Like somebody is spoofing, probably real people, or I don't know. Like, I don't know this person. I don't follow this person. I don't buy any Marvel comic books whatsoever. I don't buy anything outside of independent comics. So I have no idea of the landscape. But I as soon as I realized that this is a real thing going on, I immediately jump out because I really don't want to engage it at all. But I literally feel sorry. I feel sorry for anybody who is squashing the possibilities of their fantastic escapism during the day to something that is just not adjacent to what John Byrne spent, 18 years of his life on his own, actually writing all of these real to him X-Men stories.
I think that
somebody explain how that's not the greatest thing ever in mainstream comic books to be made.
I think that
published
with the and I don't know, and maybe I don't want to, I don't want to really dive deep into.
No, not me neither. I just find it to be contradictory.
I was never, and call me naive, I guess. I just didn't. I wasn't in those message boards in the late 90s and the early 2000s. I just wasn't there to even know about all these things that people were talking about. So I had no clue. And I think that I don't know. I just, people can make their own decision about whether or not they want to. Sure. I think that's the great thing about it. Yeah. To try to make it a movement, I think, is probably misplaced energy because you're already talking about such a niche world, comics. Even the best known comic and the best known comic artist and the best known whatever is not really denting the larger generalized pop culture landscape that much. Exactly. So there's probably things in the community that people would be better. Well, whatever. I don't want to say that.
I feel bad. And I'm speculating, but I'm feeling bad for individuals that have to act that way in order to gain attention. Yet the greater feeling of remorse for them is, I speculate, they don't know how to escape their world. They're physically being bound to this world, society, and everything in comic books. It's exactly why comic books were made. They were literally directly aligned with pulp magazines. Like, if you've ever spent 15 minutes reading any pulp magazine from the 30s to the 60s, that's bonkers stuff. I mean, it's all bonkers. You can't use any of this language anymore. It's all mixed. You know what I mean? Like, but I laugh even harder now. Like, oh my God, they use that word. That is amazing. Like I said, it's just such a shame. I can't be any older man in the way that I would want younger people specifically. I don't know. Maybe these individuals in American mainstream comics working in it are secretly escaping through manga.
Maybe that's what it is.
You know what I mean? So maybe there's just this, like, I don't know. This is something weird. There's something weird going on there. But hey, look, I digress, but regress. Look. I want to kind of bring us to a close on, are we going to be working together, you think, Jamie, again?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, that was a really good process. I will say you're not getting pencils that tight again, because that was a pain in the ass. But I know, like, I'm planning on, I got to figure this out next year. I'm going to do new Brutal Blade issues this year, but I want to do, we were talking about having you do sort of a custom issue with some art, with the cover art, Kurt Brugel cover art.
Yep.
And so yeah, we gotta figure out what that's gonna look like, but we haven't figured that out. We haven't figured that out enough yet to be probably announcing anything.
I'm going to give you a ticket though here that's redeemable for a fully colored pencils of yours.
Oh boy. All right.
So if you ever need a cover like Cyberzerker or thing like that, if you send me, because I love the landscape you create with your pencils. So these, as you call them, type pencils, there's a very specific, there's when I say landscape, that there is a gradation value system there that I see, and that I want, and that's what I want to embellish on. So the only stipulation is that the pencils have to be tight, like you did me here for Barbarians of the Pit. Yeah, this is me publicly announcing that if you need colors made for a drawing you have of one of your characters, however you want to use it, because I really do want to look forward to working with you again, because as we stated in the beginning, for both of us, our year is pretty much plotted out.
Yep.
So I'm not putting you on the on the wire there. It's more that I don't want you to think once this episode closes out and we say our good days to each other and go back into our own worlds, that like Kurt Brugel wouldn't want to work with you again, because it was just, I can't explain or give my gratitude to you enough for allowing me to be as exploratory in my growing process as an inker, a finisher, if you will, which is really my goal as being somebody a part of the indie comic scene. So thank you very, very much.
Well, I definitely watched some of those inking videos when you were just soaking the pages in different media. It's like, oh man, this is wild stuff. My work has never looked like that. It's never been worked with like that. It was eye-opening. It was a lot of fun to watch, and it's really, really cool to see what came out of it. Yeah, it was a really fun process.
I can't wait to see these in black and white print, and so much so that this story, Barbarians of the Pit, will be the first story printed in CROM Anthology #2. So this is going to be the lead, is our collaboration, Jamie. So,
well, I appreciate that. That's awesome.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So like I said, most of this, when people see it, it's like, wow, that's really kind of crazy. But all of it's based on one thought, that when I pre-run the press in the PDF, I convert this to just a black plate. So everything has got to go into value, and then it's printed, to get a really good idea. It all started with this. This is exactly how it'll come out. And I put that faux newsprint in there. And yeah, it's just a very cool way of finishing a comic book, if you will. So, but yeah, let me also just give you some time if you have a question for me or anything like that. But once again, just sort of give the overview of the rest of your year and the projects and where people can find you.
Sure. So Instagram is always the best place. I know people complain about my app, but it's hard to change it now because I put it out there so much. Matt Chi was giving me a hard time in an interview he did with Alex Turbin, because I do have a weird @ but it's @_just.Jamie_ on Instagram. But if you search Just Jamie or Just Jamie Comix, you'll find me.
If you actually put in Jamie Barrows, B-A-R-R, it brings you up. So awesome. I really don't worry about it.
So yeah, you can type in my name, Jamie Barrows. That'll get you there. That has links to the Mixum, where you can buy the books and you can keep track of what I'm doing. I've got anthology issues, which is multiple artists. It's going to be shorter, just little sample books for Cyberzerker coming out this year. I'll also be doing a full-length Cyberzerker that I hope comes out this year. There will be more Brutal Blade of Croms, hopefully by the end of summer. And I am currently drawing the 3rd issue of Sentinel Sam, and I hope to have this printed by fall time. So lots going on this year, and then I got to figure out 2027.
Not yet. I always wait till December. I always wait till December to figure. I if anything, I will say, I'll wait till next year. I'll wait till next year. But when I get to December, you know, a lot of things have to get put together. Also, too, I did go off radar in live streaming and showing off my drawing. But what happened with inking those pages? So all the pages I've actually videotaped. So when I'm actually releasing CROM Anthology #2, I'll be making a lot of videos. Like I call them speed inking videos for about 15 minutes. You can watch me talk and work on the pages, and also doing more of these live streams with other people who are involved with CROM Anthology 2 and 3. But the thing, here's the biggest question. You're going to be at IC3 this year, right?
No.
What?
I know. So I have a niece that's getting married that day. And when we got the invite, I was like, 365 days out of the year, and this is the one?
Really?
Yep.
So is it a favorite? Is it a favorite niece? Do you really need to see?
They are very nice and sweet people. So yes, I'm gonna go.
Is it near Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island?
No, it's gonna be up in Rutland, Vermont. So I can't quite make it work. Yep. So, but they're very nice, and I wouldn't miss it. But it is a bummer. I emailed Matthew Sardo, regretfully, because I had already had my table all set up.
Yeah.
So, yep, gonna miss out this year. I'm sure I'm gonna have FOMO. I'll be having my own fun, but I cannot wait for next year's because I don't want to ever miss another one because it's just such a great event.
It is, and that's September 28th in Providence, Rhode Island, down in the Warwick district. Just look for ic3.com, Indie Creator Comic Con. If you're completely oblivious to this, but as a destination goes, I believe this year I know. 2 weeks prior to that, I will be at SPX down in Bethesda, Maryland for the first time as a vendor. So I'm really excited about that to see just what the heck happens. Because the last 2 years that I did just attend the show with Dan Snoke from Raveson Station, we were both amplifying how thrilled we were with the amount of really good stuff that engaged us. So I'm hoping to contribute to that. Hopefully
for the lottery for that show. I just haven't gotten it yet. Yeah. I'll keep trying.
Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, I'll be up in IC3. So September, I'm going to be pretty much out of commission, like as my quote unquote full-time output will be. But this is why CROM Anthology #2 needs to get to release time by the end of August. So I am in that like zone, that close-in zone. But you'll be hearing more and more updates through cromthebarbarian.com as well as newsletter. If you're not on the newsletter, you are missing out on getting the early bird discount special when we do release it a week prior and stuff. But more and more of that will come along. But Jamie, I tell you, man, you really do make this indie CROM super niche place something just absolutely powerful and inspiring. And if I haven't said it enough, thank you. And also just keep doing what you do because I'm following in your footsteps.
Oh, well, you're the CROM guru. That's what I tell people. So.
The old man is really what I am. But, but look, everybody, thanks for joining us. And we'll be back again. But, the last thing I really do want to say is, and Jamie, if you're coming in at the end, I do ask you to really go back and watch this episode because we really put out a lot of good information about participating in this sort of like super niche CROM world. But Jamie and I, as well as I believe most people that are getting into the CROM, the Barbarian, sword and sorcery comic book spectator, this is a public domain character which will always be maintained as free because I am the custodian of the Gardner Francis Fox Library. And it is not only my mission, but the family's mission, because Gardner Fox, from the family, the grandchildren specifically said, he made all of this stuff purely for entertainment reasons, as well as inspiring others. So that's really what it's all about. So don't be afraid. As I said earlier in the show, if you would want to contribute or collaborate in some way in CROM, through CROM Anthologies, go to cromthebarbarian.com. But I can't speak for Jamie, but you can also speak to him directly through Instagram. But other than that, Jamie, I'm going to let you get going. And everybody, see you in the next update.
CROM prevails.
Ooh.